Riot MMORPG. I used to play World of Warcraft a lot. Back in the day, that used to be my jam. And recently I started watching Arcane. I became very interested in all the world of Arcane, Runeterra and all of this. I never played League of Legends, so I didn't know where to start. And slowly I started to realize that the lore of Runeterra that they have laid out is very rich. I haven't even scratched the surface of the lore. But people kept saying in the comments that I should definitely watch Necrit's video. And I'm doing that today. Let's check out how the MMORPG is gonna be. Roughly, probably in 2040 or something like that. We had to wait a little bit. But hey, maybe they will surprise us and it's gonna be next year, right? Make sure to check out Necrit. His video will be linked down there in the description.
In the past, MMOs were regarded as the godfathers of games. They were the peak of what developers could accomplish. Even though, looking back, that's a fairly subjective thing to say. Everyone knew MMOs had the power to create cult following, but also everyone knew making MMOs was hard. On average, an MMO has to spend at least 6 years in the baking before it can get anywhere near being good. But that didn't stop companies from jumping onto the bandwagon anyway. And soon we could see dozens of new MMOs.
Warhammer had an MMO? I didn't even know that. This one is still going on, Lord of the Rings.
Spoiler alert, none of them did that.
WoW
and
killers.
Unfortunately, we can feel the ripple effects even now. It got to a point where every time a new MMO is announced, we all think the same thing. Oh.
What?
Anyway, when you're working on an MMO, you have to respect 3 pillars. Gameplay is king, social interactions matter, and the world setting is important.
Especially the social interactions when World of Warcraft was released. Back then there was no Discord, nothing like that. So having a game where you can actually see the other person and where like communication back then was so bare bones, it was huge. I think people underestimate how huge it was back then, and I think that was a very key success for that game. With the Riot MMO, I wonder if they will do something that will feel as important as that was back then.
When Riot announced their MMO, it became clear that 2 of the pillars are being respected, and the third one is already done. When it comes to the gameplay, it is currently in the hands of Ghostcrawler, someone who's been working on WoW during its best
I know
times,
this guy.
and someone who got a reputation for hating boomkins and loving mages. When it comes to the social interactions, it is a dance between the developers and the players. A dev can guide players towards social interactions, or they can annihilate them. And after that, the players usually find their own fun inside the MMO. From that point on, the devs should do everything in their power to support the players having fun in their own way. And finally, when it comes to the world of an MMO, in Riot's case, it's done. And it's been finished for quite a few years now. In fact,
I checked out the map the other day. I only checked one area. And if you haven't checked it, I suggest you go, take a look at every single area and start scrolling, start reading. There is so much of lore, like it's really, really cool. They definitely have said already the word.
Finished for quite a few years now. In fact, the world of Riot's MMO is in such a good state. They already have the continents, the zones,
I didn't know you could zoom in that much.
And to a lesser degree, every zone already has its own storyline. Now, of course, unless you follow the lore of League of Legends, you wouldn't know about this. And that's why I decided to make this video. I want to show you all the zones we are going to see in the MMO and what sorts of quests we are going to do there. So, for the purpose of this video, I will assume you have no idea what League of Legends is about.
That's pretty much me.
You have no idea what the universe is about, but you like MMOs, your hairline is receding, and you have a crippling fear of Nintendo 64 controllers. To which I might add, why do you think I'm wearing hats? But now, without further ado, let's have a look at all the zones in Riot's MMO.
Let's go!
This is Runeterra, the world of League of Legends. Right now, the world is separated into 10 main regions. But these 10 regions don't cover all the land on the map, so there are some mini-zones in between them. And the lore already revealed that there is gonna be another continent further to the east. That definitely sounds like a future expansion to me. In fact, it would be foolish to release all of these regions at launch. You can easily turn half of these into separate expansions. And because a lot of people already know and love these regions, the hype behind these expansions would be big. With that said, I know a lot of you would like to play as Shrimans or Ionians. And now you may be cursing me for suggesting that these would be expansions. But the lore can justify giving you these nations as playable races without having their regions. I'll show you how.
I wonder how many races there are.
First, let's talk about the regions Riot's MMO has to start with. The Northern Continent. This entire continent is called Valoran. Not Valorant.
Oh.
Valoran. And this is where the absolute core of this world is.
Part of Riot?
The two main regions here are Demacia and Noxus. They are the two big rivals equivalent to the Horde and the Alliance.
Oh, Demacia looks way smaller.
While I would like to say that Demacia is your classic normie human region, it's not really true. Runeterra doesn't really have a normal place. There is something cool happening in every region. And Demacia has racism. Okay, maybe not racism, because Demacia doesn't mind Yordles or Minotaurs, but they really hate mages. That's because in the past, their rivals almost annihilated half of the world using magic. And so, Demacia was built inside a magic-absorbing forest.
They're turning people into sheep.
Therefore, Demacia is a really cool place where you can hide from magic. When it comes to the visuals of the zone, you can see a lot of lush fields, it is surrounded by mountains, but the iconic part of Demacia are the buildings. They are made of petricite, which is a combination of stone and the magic-absorbing wood. Because these ancient magic-absorbing trees were grey, all the buildings have a marble-like appearance. And yes, given what material they are using, all the buildings in Demacia also absorb magic. So should a mage visit this region, let's just say it's gonna be a painful experience. On top of this, let's not forget that
painful or just a magic is
evaporated? Petricite. They can turn it into petricite steel, which gives you your classic anti-magic weapons, and you can sculpt petricite constructs which wake up after absorbing magic. Simply said, these guys just really...
I wonder if when we are in the game, imagine you have a mage and you go nearby here, you just die? Or what? That would be cool though. Like, I see these pillars around. I wonder if like you just cross here, you are dead. That would be an interesting mechanic actually. And also interesting that they don't separate the factions by races, but by classes. That's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen a MMORPG doing that.
They don't like magic. The irony is, they've been absorbing it for years now. And this is where the story would kick in. You see, the Demacians are so afraid of magic, they founded the Mage Seeker Order. This is an order of people who hunt mages, they throw them in the prison, and they torture them until their body gives up on magic. So yes, being a mage is a crime in Demacia.
Wow.
The thing is, people still get naturally born with magical abilities. You can't stop it from happening. So not only are there mages hiding in the royal court, right now there is a mage civil war happening in Demacia, where mages and people who don't hate mages rise up to fight for moral rights.
How do they do that though?
Should we do some quests in this zone? This is gonna be the
if the magic is absorbed.
Mages trying to overthrow racist leadership following old laws. So the main enemy NPCs might be mages and witches. But I know what you're thinking now. And don't worry, there will be plenty of boars to kill here too. Or at least there are loads of wolves here as well as stags. And we can't forget the iconic Demacian raptors. But further to the south, we might find some crag beasts, tiny woolly elephants, and yes, of course in the Argent Mountains there are also dragons. Loads and loads of dragons. But that's about it for Demacia. Fun fact, the capital city of Demacia is called the Great City of Demacia. Sounds dumb, but Runeterra was not the first one to come up with this. But thankfully the other regions are a bit more creative with their names. So now, let's move away from the normie region and let's have a look at the badass region. Noxus. If you're planning on playing a warrior with oversized weapons and overcompensating lush hair, this is the region for you. This place actually has a long and badass history, but we really don't have the time to explain it now. So just know that originally it was built by the most badass warrior in the history of Runeterra. This motherfucker literally died on a mountain of corpses. And after he died, he was too angry to stay dead, so he just became the god of the underworld.
He was
angry? When this guy lived, he built the Immortal Bastion. which is to this day the largest structure on the entirety of Runeterra.
Imagine walking around
he
in
is
there
banished
in the game.
underneath the Immortal Bastion, but only a few people know about it. So, you know, that's a future raid boss.
Yeah, I was just thinking
the Immortal
that.
Bastion is the capital city
100%.
of the Noxian Empire, with Noxus being one of the most brutal nations in Runeterra. It is brutal because the nation is surrounded by rocky earth. It is hard to grow plants here. So Noxians are forced into conquering surrounding land for resources to survive.
Warriors.
That's why when you go to the map, you can notice that the Noxian territory is all over the place. It's because
big, yeah.
these are all the places Noxus has already conquered. Although, when I say it like that, you may imagine Noxus brutally raiding everything. But that's not true. They like to absorb the surrounding nations into their empire. After all, it's just more human resources. Most of the time, they only remove the royalty and they let the leaderless people join their empire. And that's because Noxus values strength above all. And rulers tend to not be good fighters. This is what you can see in the After Victory cinematic. They kill the king because he was weak and let everyone else join them.
I need to check out the cinematics. I haven't checked out almost any.
Conquering nations is so iconic for Noxus, they have their own saying. Kill them until they are family. So when it comes to the quests in Noxus, it is most likely going to be helping the Empire expand its territory. Although, this region has its own unique enemies too. Inside the Immortal Bastion, there is a cult known as the Black Rose. This cult is connected to the darkest of magics. So be ready to fight Hemomancers, witches, demons, and the Grey Legion, which is an army of soldiers revived with blood magic to fight for the Empire again. And when it comes to collecting 10 bear asses, here we have the native Drakehounds and Basilisks. Now, while Noxus and Demacia are the main rivals here, both of them are also constantly repelling raids from the north. So now, let's have a look at the Freljord.
The north.
Just like pretty much any region on Runeterra.
By the way, I checked out the other video by Necrit where he says that up here there is a void rift or something like that. So I'm guessing that potentially that could be a raid encounter too. Or like an expansion or something where you go through the portal. I don't know exactly what's the void, but probably he will explain something here. And also it's very cool how, like I was saying, the areas are divided by classes, kind of like what we just saw could be warriors and maybe rogues or something like that. And yeah, I could see that, like, depending on which class you choose, you are assigned a city or something. That would be really, really cool.
Freljord has a long history. But for the purpose of this video, just know that the maddening old gods known as the Watchers of the Void, who want to devour the entire reality only because it keeps waking them up, once tried to breach into reality here. They almost succeeded because they tricked the Ice Witch Lysandra into helping them.
There were
Fortunately, she
three
realized
witches, right?
how wrong she was, and she managed to freeze half of the kingdom with the Watchers still beneath them.
I'm learning.
So these days, the Ice Witch is the only person holding back the end of reality by keeping the Watchers frozen. So at some point in the future, you bet one of these woken up frozen Watchers is gonna be a raid boss.
There you go.
Now, when it comes to the NPCs, this is where things get diverse. First of all, remember that the Freljord is brutally cruel. Everything is frozen, and survival is everything. So like the first enemy here would be the wildlife. From Rimefangs to Yetis, to Druvasks, to Elnuks, to Mammoths, to the worst of them all, Boros.
Oh,
next,
those
we
are
going
cute.
To fight the Freljordians themselves.
Didn't Heimerdinger have one of
There are
these?
three main tribes here. The Avarosans, who are quite peaceful, the Wintersclaw, who are quite brutal, and the Frostguard, Lysandra's followers who hold back the Watchers. And let me tell you, these guys have some badass armor. Among the notable tribes, there are also the Ursine, which are shamans who worship the Volibear, the primal god of the wild, who slowly turns his worshippers into twisted animalistic monstrosities.
Hey, I like that.
Speaking of which, yes, there are also the primal gods of Freljord. And finally, we need to talk about the Iceborn. When the Watchers tried to arrive here, they tainted the ice around them. This special ice is called the True Ice, and it is so dangerous you literally die if you touch it. However, the Watchers also tainted some people, giving them the ability to touch the ice. It is still extremely painful for them to hold a true ice weapon, but at least they can survive it. These people are known
and they have
as
weapons
the
and everything.
Iceborn.
It doesn't melt.
But people were not the only things that were tainted. There are also ice trolls, some of whom are also Iceborn. To be honest, these guys
so many
were
races,
made
it's crazy.
to have their own dungeon. But there are also some animals that were twisted by the Watchers. And Lysandra is even twisting some beings herself to make them serve her. So overall, Freljord is gonna have a lot of cool warriors, shamans, and
the cinematic looks cool.
horrors.
I need to check it out.
So these would be the three
and
regions on the main continent. But this place is actually so big it can easily make the base world of the game. Especially since there are a bunch of smaller regions in between them. There is Nokmerge full of witches, Argent Mountains with their dragons, Tokugol with void monsters,
so many areas,
Dalamor Plains with him, and so much
Morlocks?
But from here, you can cleverly set up the expansions because of how well everything is interconnected. So now, let's have a look at the continent to the east called Ionia. Ionia has a very close connection to Noxus. You can only guess why. It's because Noxians once tried to conquer it all during an event simply called the Invasion of Ionia. This was a horrible war full of using children as soldiers because Noxians thought Ionians wouldn't fight back against children. And chemical weapons. Lots and lots of chemical weapons. Speaking of which, remember Singed from Arcane?
Yeah?
He's the guy who chemically devastated Ionia. Eventually, Noxus
How dare
failed,
you,
but they
Singe?
kept
You
their
keep
small
getting away with the
territories.
stuff.
So the first quest here could be simply boarding a ship, sailing over, and exploring the place for the Noxian Empire.
Looks
now,
beautiful
when it comes to Ionia itself, the place gets mystical. Everything here is alive and connected to the spirit of nature. And I mean everything, from the animals to the people to the buildings. Everything is alive. So if you anger Mother Nature, your house can twist and strangle you in your sleep.
Oh my
so
God.
you can only imagine how Mother Nature fought against Noxians. Usually a river came alive to drown them. That's why all the buildings here look like they were woven from wood. It's because they were.
Cool.
With nature magic, people let nature build their houses. It also means that sometimes your house
I wish that was
just
true. Oh my God, in real
away.
life.
When it comes to the NPCs here, obviously there is gonna be a lot of nature spirits.
Yeah.
And a lot more of simply mystical animals. From giant flying tigers to the never-ending story. But be ready to also face local Ionians, blade masters,
love the never-ending story.
shadow cultists, murderers, and ninjas. Both good, bad, and the in-between. But finally, there is also one more enemy that
this is so amazing. There is so much.
The furries. That's right, this race is known as
Cat girls.
Devastaya. They are half...
I'm calling it now already. This is gonna be the most playable race of this game whenever it comes out. Cat girls take over everything.
half humans and half magical animals. And yes,
I mean, do you blame them? Oh my God.
was born in exactly the way you are thinking. But to be fair, the Devastaya are quite cool and they are definitely gonna be a playable race. Just like Yordles, who also like
the
Ionia
ninjas.
a lot. Lastly, after Noxians ravaged Mother Nature, demons started occupying all the places filled with misery and doubt. So that's gonna be a nice bonus enemy. So yes, the exploration of Ionia and the raid on the Shadow Order could be a really cool first expansion.
Yeah, I can see that.
But it's definitely not Riot's only option, because we can also go south to Piltover and Zone.
Alright,
these are the ones people will know about, simply because...
So I checked out in another video Zone, and I still need to check out Piltover. And there is so much to it. Like, the lore, it's insane. The quantity and the richness of lore, it's overwhelming almost. But I'm loving it.
Because this is where Arcane took place.
Yeah.
Piltover and Zone are two massive cities located one above the other. And they are so massive they could easily be turned into their own playable zones.
Yeah.
They are both focusing on futuristic technology powered up by magic of the Hextech
It's
gemstones.
kind of steampunky.
Using this magic, they can power up anything from guns to augmented limbs to vehicles. Visually, it is simply futuristic Victorian era. And unfortunately, there wouldn't be much of enemy variety. We would likely fight the rich houses of Piltover and their deadly assassins, with the occasional thief on the streets, corrupt wardens?
I thought Piltover was more of an order, you know, like everything's established and there is no... I mean, we see some corruption in the show with Marcus and all of that, but I don't know. I thought it was less sketchy than other areas, but I guess I'm wrong. There is everywhere corruption and stuff, yeah.
And the occasional rogue steam golem. But things get a bit more interesting in the undercity known as Zone. Zone is the dirty underbelly covered in thick toxic smoke. Yeah. Because the majority of people are poor here, they developed a cheaper alternative to Hextech called Chemtech. This artificial green stuff can power up cheaper limb replacements, as well as highly unstable weapons.
Where Shimmer takes place in here.
Zone is also controlled by the Chem Barons, which are obviously gonna be the main enemy here. But on the side, we may also meet some chemical mutants,
Dr. Mundo, I know them now, oh my god.
As well as some mass murderers and people who hunt down mass murderers.
I forgot this guy's name.
And funnily enough, at the very bottom of Zone itself, there are the hidden ruins of an ancient city full of traps. That
I don't know about
obviously gonna be a cool dungeon.
Yeah.
So yes, there is not much more that I can add here. Piltover and Zone were simply explored in Arcane. So if you like the series, you are gonna like this place. From here, we can travel further south to Shurima. Shurima used to be a massive empire that ruled the world.
Yeah, I saw that on the other video.
Betrayed by his Egyptian best friend, the entire empire collapsed. This region is a massive desert with the occasional city near a river. In the center of the region, there is the Sun Disk, a colossal piece of star metal that has the power to reflect celestial magic. The Shurimans used...
Imagine walking around with your character and seeing this huge disc in the air. And oh my god, I would be in awe. Like, just exploring the game, even though you're not good at MMORPGs or anything. But imagine being a fan of Arcane or League of Legends and you just want to see the world. I think that would be an amazing experience whenever that happens.
This celestial magic to turn their best soldiers into the Ascended, also known as the Golden God Warriors.
The Dogos.
However, these God Warriors wouldn't make a great enemy here. That's because after the Emperor had died, the Ascended started fighting for leadership. And slowly, after learning how to use blood magic to gain the edge, they morphed their own bodies and became the Darkin. Twisted, blood-frenzied monsters that would certainly make really cool raid bosses.
Yeah, that looks
Besides this ancient evil, Shurima is also full of its own animals, raiders, dune scavengers, and on top of all of that, void creatures. That's because to the south, there used to be a kingdom known as Icathia that wanted to destroy the Shuriman Empire. So, they asked the Watchers for help. You can imagine how that went. The Watchers
I saw this
sent
image.
Through some void beasts that consumed Icathia and polluted Shurima to this day. To fight back the void, Shurima does have a lot of hidden tombs around with hidden God Warrior weapons. Not to mention that Shurima also has a circle of time mages who are trying to freeze the void in time. Now, as I mentioned near the beginning of the video, even if Shurima becomes an expansion, they can still easily make Shurimans a playable race because they are already connected to Noxus. As you can see, of course, Noxians already conquered part of Shurima.
They tried.
So some Shurimans
not tried, they did, oh my god.
Also, as a cool fact, for those of you who liked Arcane, Hex Crystals are harvested in Shurima. That's why a Shuriman expansion would be a great follow-up to Piltover and Zone. And again, that's why Riot can easily turn only the northern continent into the base world. Anyway, going west from Shurima, we arrive at Mount Targon. This place is incredibly unique. First of all, this mountain is not natural. It was literally pulled up from the ground by celestial gods. And that's because this place serves as a portal to the
the celestial gods are the opposite of the void, right? That's what I got from the first video. They were trying to do something in this planet to raise warriors against the void or something like that, but it didn't go as planned. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
Celestial realm, also known as Targon Prime. Now, because this mountain was pulled up, it also has some unique features. For example, you may find frozen lakes frozen horizontally on the mountain.
That's
and
cool.
the very peak of the mountain is special
because it was raised.
Should a mortal reach the peak, despite the brutal climate and the deadly wildlife, either they die from exhaustion, Or the celestial gods deem them worthy and they become an ascended aspect. There is aspect of war, aspect of the sun, aspect of the moon, aspect of the twilight, aspect of the guardian, and so on. Simply said, after people reach the peak, they become some of
those are like the aspects and the dragon aspects in World of Warcraft, right? Where there are a few different packs.
Strongest beings on the entire planet. So of course, the mountain is full of people who worship the celestial demigods. And I speculate this is where we could get a lot of cool armor sets. There are the Solari, who are devoted to the aspect of the sun. Then there are the rivals, the Lunari, who are devoted to the aspect of the moon. But also, the tribe, I assume, will become a playable class.
It's like Spartans or something.
Of course, besides just humans, Targon also has all sorts of furry Vastaya. Near the bottom of the mountain, you may notice that the mountain is alive. But also there are Stellacorns,
like the Elden Ring
of mind-bending creatures, and loads of dragons. Speaking of which, remember that this place is linked to the Celestial Realm. So this is where we may also meet the star-forging Celestial Dragon Aurelian Soul, as well as all sorts of other celestial beings. A lot of these would make for interesting bosses. In fact, the Ascension of Mount Targon would be a really cool raid. Next, on the other side of Shurima, there is Ishtal. This is a special place where people are mastering the elemental magic. They are using it for everything.
Like
fishing,
mages?
Smithing, walking... And this place is definitely gonna be saved for an expansion. Basically, remember when Icathian asked the Watchers for help? And then that happened? Ishtal was their neighbor, and after they saw the Void devour an entire kingdom, they believed the Void would soon devour the entire world. So, using their elemental magic, Ishtal built...
You know, something I noticed in that, for example, in World of Warcraft, they have a very distinct visual art style, right? Everybody recognizes World of Warcraft at first sight. Other MMOs are like kind of more realistic and stuff, right? I feel the Riot MMO will be like World of Warcraft in the sense that it will be kind of cartoony and it will evolve very well over time. Like it won't look as dated in 10 years or something. And I feel that's very important too.
Massive walls of plants around their entire region, isolating themselves from the rest of the world. For 3,500 years, Ishtal stayed isolated, believing that the world outside of their walls was devoured by the Void. But now, very recently, some mages found out that the world outside is completely fine. So now, the Ishtali mages are slowly revealing themselves. To be honest, Ishtal is the most underdeveloped region in Runeterra.
I like how it looks though.
The region has a lot of hunting Vastaya, deadly plants and some elemental dragons, but most of the region is still a mystery to us. So at least here, Riot will have the freedom to try something new.
Yeah.
But now, we'll leave the main continent to visit the last two regions. First of all, there is Bilgewater. If you like pirate adventures,
I love pirates.
This is gonna be your place.
My name is MrGuybrush, comes from a pirate game,
inns and gambling dens.
I wanna be one of these.
Temples worshipping the god of motion, Nagake Boros. Here we are going to fight pirates and sea monsters, sea witches, sea Vastaya, maybe some demons. And possibly we'll side with Sarah Fortune to fight the king of the pirates, Gangplank. But there's a lot more here. Last year, Riot released their RPG, which was set in Bilgewater. So not only can we already explore this place in detail, but it even has a monster journal. And at a quick glance, you can already see some really cool bosses too.
I wanna play this game. What's this game
called? Also linked to the last place I wanna show you today, the Shadow Isles. See, every year the horrors of the Shadow Isles lurk out. And Bilgewater just happens to be the closest place. So every year, Bilgewater is fighting the undead. Once upon a time, the Shadow Isles used to be the Blessed Isles, a rich place full of advanced magic. Long story short, there was a young asshole king who wanted to revive his dead queen. And in the process, he accidentally released dark necromantic magic.
Gotta be careful, man.
Destroyed the island and made it home for undeath. In the lore, this event is called the Ruination. And because the RPG is called the Ruined King, it may not be a surprise to you that you also get...
Wait, there is a book about this, isn't there? I wanna get this book, actually. Is it about this? Oh my god.
To explore the Shadow Isles there. And there they have anything you can imagine. Undead horrors creeping everywhere. And should we ever venture into these islands, I have no idea whom we're going to fight. The ruined king who caused all of this is banished elsewhere. Thresh, who siphoned his magic after he was banished, also left the Isles. And even Hecarim, the most brutal soldier of them all, is currently around Demacia. So the Shadow Isles don't currently have a main baddie.
They can come out with anything.
Riot could push forward some of the side characters.
There you go.
Now, even though these have all been the regions that are currently set up on Runeterra, Riot has already confirmed that there is a new continent further to the east. Currently, it is planned to be revealed in the upcoming Ruination novel. And so far, we know that this new continent is where the ruined king Diego is from. And this is also where he was banished at the end of his story. All we know about that place is that it is quite mystical. There are yet more dragons here, and in fact, Kamavor, which is the Ruined King's nation, has a lot of draconic armor. So should Riot run out of places to explore, don't worry, they can always make up more. But
I mean, look at this. Look at all the war and everything he just explained. That could be such a big game already. I wonder why they had delayed this game for so long.
Of places to explore, don't worry, they can always make up more. But that's all I wanted to show you today. As someone who's been following the lore of League of Legends from the very beginning, I can tell you, I'm very confident the setting of Riot's MMO is gonna be great. Their incredible writers have been preparing the world for years now. And now, it's time to harvest the fruit. If you like this video, let me know in the comments below.
I liked it.
Because right now, I
Check it out, everybody.
3 more topics that I could talk about in regards to the MMO. I especially want to talk about the potential raid bosses we can face, and the potential classes we could play. And as someone who has collected an unholy amount of transmog, I would love to show you all the cool armor sets this universe has.
That is a lot, probably.
But that's it for this video.
Bye.
See you in 6 to 8 years when the MMO gets released.
To be fair, this video came out a year ago, so we're already more or less in there, okay? I don't know if he knew that it was delayed, but anyway, I predict that it's gonna be out in 2030 or something like that. Alright, there you go. A lot of you asked me to watch this video because I was showing interest in MMORPGs and all of that. And I can see why. There is so much to explore in this world and there is so much lore. I'm on my side and exploring the lore so that if someday they release this, whenever that happens, I'm ready and I know everything about it. And not only because of Arcane, but because I like the world, I like the fantasy. Arcane is actually very tame when it comes to fantasy. It's all like mechanical stuff and a little bit of magic with the hex and the shimmer and all of that. The rest of the world has a lot more going on. I wonder if someday maybe Arcane will dab into other territories. That would be cool. I mean, they kind of hinted it with the woman Medarda, right? I think this is an Noxian, maybe? I'm not sure. But it would be cool if in Season 2 of Arcane they show a little bit more of that. That would be amazing. Anyway, if you made it this far, consider subscribing. I'm gonna go through all the story of League of Legends, or as much as I can, because there's a lot, okay? So if this is interesting to you, I will appreciate if you could check it out, okay? So, thank you so much. It's been MrGuybrush, and I will see you next time. Bye, 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 bye.